All right, guys. It's sorry about the video quality. February 18th, 2018. I wanted to share a video with you, and I actually found an issue with the stuff. I wanted to basically touch up on how to wire a four-way switch. Okay, a four-way switch basically entails that you can turn it off in three places, 4, 5, 6, whatever, however many places in your house that you want it to. Um, and I'll get into a small little bit of detail of what's going on. But I also found out when I was pulling this thing off before I started the video that my top fan speed control for my ceiling fan it just pulled right out of there. So I had to remake the connection, and it was something that, thank God, I did find it. So, but it's fixed. All right, so a four-way switch is basically going to entail um, one three-way, one four-way, and this power is dead. I've already confirmed it with no lights being on, with a multimeter and a volt tick. Okay, and this is my front door. These switches are usually typically located in entrances way, and that switch right there is still hot, and I'll get to that in a second because it's actually coming off of that outlet which feeds my outdoor light. All right, back to the switch. Okay, so main principles that you're gonna need with a three-way and four-way switch is you're gonna need two three-way switches and one four-way switch. Depending on your applications, you can put 2, 3. Like I said, you can put however many in there you want. So basically, the most important part of this video is to make sure that you have a hot wire coming in here and a switch leg coming into this box right here. Okay, there is a few different variations on how to wire this, and I'll explain that here in a second. All right, so our four-way switch is basically what I call a bridge switch. Basically, you have your travelers, which you're gonna need 14-3 or 12-3 wire for this application. Okay, so this is the middle of this. This is the middle of the switch circuit. So I have a 14-3 coming in here, and I'm sorry for the shadow, but that just sucks, man. Okay, and which technically I should have some ground wire bonding to this box, because it is a metal box, which is totally against code, but for this applications, at least I'm pointing it out. But you have a 14-3 coming in from this switch here, which goes from that box to that box. All right, so these switches are kind of expensive, but I mean, this switch looks like it was built in the 1970s, but believe it or not, this is actually a Menards switch. It's actually a pretty heavy duty switch. But you have your blacks and your reds. Okay, see that? And you tie them in exactly how I see it, as you see it. Okay, now, which brings me to my next point. My white wire that I have coming in there. Okay, this white wire is actually being used as a current conductor. That white wire is actually wire nutted in here, and it's totally separate from this switch right here. Okay, so that wire is not my neutral. That wire is actually has turned into my switch leg. And by code, you can do that, but you gotta identify it with black tape or whatever. But in this case, I did not do that. But you see, your black and your red, they're called your travelers. Okay? And there's my white wire. That will land on your common screw on both three-ways. Okay? One's going to be your power. One's going to be your switch leg. Okay, so, yeah, see, I jumped the grounds with that, but I didn't do it on the other switch box. Loser! Okay, so, there's my travelers. Usually it's the two gold lugs, and then usually it's the off-colored, usually black, or in this case, gold. So two silvers, and that's how it is. So basically what I did here is, what the hell did I do here? Alright, well, I got one hot coming in, but I didn't identify, my power must be coming in from, what the hell did I do here, man? Okay. But anyways, it's working. And that's obviously my hots coming in, which are right here, my whites, which you need to identify them with black wire or black tape. I'm sorry that this video is probably against code, but I do know it. But this is my place, and I wired it. I know how it is. But these do need to be identified with black tape. But anyways, these are my hots. And what I did here was this wire right here is actually my 14.3 going to the other switches. So this gets wire nutted down there, and this white wire ends up on the other terminal as my hot wire. Okay, so that's how that works. And my switch leg, the switch leg is right there. It's the gold one. That's the one that goes up to the light. That's a 14.2 that goes up to the light. So basically what I did here is there is a white wire that's not being used, which the neutral is already up at the light. But I do have a neutral here in the switch box. According to the code, you have to have a neutral in the switch box. So that is basically how you wire a three-way switch. As long as your wires and your power and your switch leg are at one box or both boxes, great. You have to make sure that you have one of each at least one box and whatnot. So if I were to actually say, I'm going to bring my switch leg and my power in to this box. So basically, I would have to take my connections, my white wires coming in. You'd actually have to send power down one of the white wires to the other box as a switch leg or power, and then and vice versa to the other box. So as long as you have a neutral at that box, you're completely fine. But you have to realize when you do use steel boxes like this, you do have to bond them, and you do have to do. But with plastic boxes, I don't think it's necessary. But different inspectors and whatnot, you're actually grounding the device, which technically, I know sometimes I've gone into houses and you touch a screw, the faceplate screw, and you get a tingle. In other words, you're not grounded. You're not grounded at all. You have actually voltage leak or whatever it may be. But Anyways, that's what I wanted to share with you. That 3-ways are actually, and 4-ways are not hard to wire. They're actually very simple to wire. But if you're unsafe wiring these, especially doing new construction, call a licensed electrician. It's probably better to do it that way, especially if you don't know what you're doing. When it comes to switches, and I'll just wrap this up. That little fat lump that you see back there. Yeah, my video sucks. But anyways, that is pretty much it. That's how you wire 4-way switches. They're actually very simple. And so in conclusion, just make sure that you identify your if you're going to use your whites as hots, make sure you put tape on them. And anytime you do pull switches apart, make sure you check your connections, because that little connection right there could have actually caused a fire, because usually loose connections are what they call arcing, which if your living room is arc faulted, it should detect it, because usually that's usually what it is. Loose connections usually will trip, because you have a imbalance there, and it's trying to make connections, so your current is going to go up a little bit higher and whatnot. So, but anyways, that's pretty much a 3-way in a nutshell. If you have any questions, comment on the video. Thanks.